99.9 The Bay.
Five minutes after 8 o'clock. Good morning, it's John. Beautiful start to your Tuesday. Last night, a marathon meeting at City Council where they wrapped up just after 1 a.m. A bulk of the meeting, just almost 4 hours worth, pertained to the indoor turf facility. And so on the program this morning to talk about that and more is Mayor Bill Mauro. Good morning, fine sir.
Good morning, John. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Hey, no problem. I wanted to make sure that we talk today because this is a discussion that you and I have been dancing around for months. I listened back to an interview that you and I did 10 weeks ago where somewhat frustrated, you said that I've been dancing around the idea of hitting the brakes on the indoor turf facility because of the pandemic and because of the state of the finances of the city. And you wanted to keep going forward with it. And last night brought to the table was a motion to refer that facility and the construction of that facility until November of 2021. Administration and the CEDC both said that maybe we should just pump the brakes a little bit, and council said forget it. So here we are on the next day. You will ratify that decision on August the 24th. Last night's discussion was at times heated. There was some new information. There was some information that we regurgitated, but at the end of it all, council decided that we're going to keep going forward with this. It's something that you very much support, and you didn't seem to waver at all last night when the discussion was made that the pandemic is kind of making things a little bit more tricky.
Well, John, yeah, a couple of things. In terms of new information, I was very clear, in my comments that the referral motion from administration, in my opinion, did not contain anything that was new except for good news. It's still a challenge. I'm not being insensitive to that. But if you think 2 months ago or so, the report came projecting an operating deficit of $13 million to the end of December. The new report showed it at $7 million, so it had gone down by $7 million. So that had put that in a good or a better place. 2 months ago, when we had that report, we did not know if we were going to get provincial or federal money for operating deficits and for transit support. We now know for sure that we will, although we don't know how much. And the costs in the referral motion, supporting the referral motion by administration, talking about reopenings having costs associated with that, are legitimate. There may be expenses associated with those depending on decisions of council, but that's not new information either. And so in terms of me not wavering, there's nothing new there for me except that the news is better than it was 2 months ago in terms of our projected operating deficit. To the point of the ratification, yeah, that's not a done deal. That's important, and thanks for bringing that up. We have 2 weeks from now, as a council, city council formally, have to ratify the decision that was made last night. And so until that passes, this decision last night is not official. It was a 9-4 vote, so 3 people would have to change their votes to be opposed. So hopefully we don't find ourselves in that situation.
Do you think, and we're talking about the 24th and whether or not somebody will change their mind, Councillor Folds last night in what I thought was probably one of the most dramatic speeches of the night, talked about the struggle that he's having with making this decision, and other councillors that I've talked to struggle the same way, in that we all agree that we need this facility, but many are saying that this is not the right time. At the same time, you got a lot of feedback from the city's call for feedback from the community that was saying pretty much the same thing, Bill, that this is a great idea, but is this really the right time? We don't know what's going to happen in the next year. We don't know if organized sports is going to be something that people are going to be playing in the next year. We just don't know what's going to happen. That didn't seem to really make a dent in anybody's thinking last night.
It's a fair point, John, right? And I did acknowledge last night that out of the referral motion, the only piece of it, in my opinion, that did have merit was there is uncertainty on a go-forward basis with the 2021 years. But it's not like anything, it's not different in any way, shape, or form. We would then, if it is a negative situation, we'll have to make our decisions around that if we find ourselves in that circumstance. I mean, for the argument that this is not the right time, remember that what you've just described as what will organized sports look like. We won't we won't be faced with that for at least 2 years. You know, if we get this over the finish line on August 24th, this is a 2-year construction project.
True.
And so you don't have to be concerned, I mean, with that possibility for fully 2 years from now. And so I think most people believe, right, again, this is me, I'm not playing scientist, most people believe there'll be a vaccine, and hopefully things will have dramatically changed by then. You know, if this is not the right time, you know, I just don't agree with that. And in fact, Councillor Foulds himself criticized people for using that argument last night. He said he hoped that didn't sound harsh, but that sometimes when people say this is not the right time, it is just a bit of a smokescreen for people who don't really support the project.
Right.
So he actually used those words. So the not the right time, you know, again, if it's not the right time, you have to tell me why. And I don't really hear people saying the why part that carries a lot of weight in terms of my position on the project.
I think, okay, so let me ask you then. The why part for me is that I don't know how much money is going to be in the bank by the end of this year, and I don't know what your budget is going to look like in January, and I don't know what you're going to have to cut because of the losses that we face during COVID come January. That
Right.
part makes me nervous.
Fair enough. So here's where we are, and this is where the two pieces came together and collided, right? The idea of debenturing X to finish the project, and then the situation we find ourselves in with COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So we have been projected now at 13 million, has now gone down to a 7 million. And we acknowledge it's possible that will be higher. We also know that we're going to get money from the province and the feds on this. So let's say that the report on August 24th, coincidentally, from administration lands on our desks the same night we're supposed to ratify this decision. We'll see what the number really looks like. And for the sake of this discussion, let's say it's gone up by 1 million. Let's say it's 8 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I don't need to argue the point.
Right.
Let's assume it goes up. As I've said, we'll be getting some provincial and federal money. We don't know how much. And so in addition, I made the point last night, no one had mentioned, we've got $13 million in a rate stabilization fund, John.
Right.
It's been put there, good work by previous councils, for exactly this sort of eventuality. $13 million is there. So let's say that it goes from 7 to 8 in 2 weeks. And then let's subtract the X, the unknown X, on the provincial federal money. Let's hope it's significant, 1 to 3 million, 4 million. Who knows, right? I don't know what that will be, but I always was quite certain we were going to get some help. And you have a rate stabilization fund backstop. I think a lot of the resistance in the community that exists is concerned with what this may mean for our potential tax base.
Right.
And I tried very hard last night, John, on a couple of occasions to make the point that if this gets passed last night, this project, not talking about the COVID-19 operating budget shortfall, but talking about the project itself, if it passes, that has almost no impact on your tax base because we have $15 million tucked away. 7 million of that was federal gas tax money. The other 8 million, or most of that other 8 million, we've already, as a community, built that into our taxes. So we've paid for that with our taxes, but that's not going to impact your taxes on a go-forward basis. Okay. So that leaves us with the debenture cost.
Right.
And as we made the point last night, the cost of the debenture will be $20 times 25 years for the average median household in Thunder Bay. And I would say finally on this argument, if we choose to, we can significantly reduce that debenture if people want to. Mm-hmm. And I gave 3 examples last night of money that's there, that's already built in and supported by taxpayers that could reduce that debenture if we choose to go that route.
All right. I support what you're saying. You're the expert in this. Your team is the expert in this. You're telling us that we can afford it. I believe you. However, take off your mayor hat for a second and put away the hat that formerly an MP. You've seen this movie before. There is just, in my mind, there is no possible way that this place is going to be built for under $40 million. And that price tag that we're going to attach to it could be a lot larger than what we're anticipating now. Will we still have the money to pay for it?
Well, I don't know where you get your number from, John, but the point is fair, and that will be another hurdle for council to consider.
Bill, I get my number as a lifelong resident of Northwood, and knowing that building things in Northwood are a lot more difficult when you start digging in the ground.
Well, and you would have heard the comments that I and others made last night that we are doing and have been doing geotechnical work on the site for some time.
Right.
But your point is fair. First, let me talk with me saying it's affordable. I mean, what's affordable to you, to me, to the next person in line? That's a very subjective term. And I'm not going to use the word to say it's affordable. I'm going to say I support the project as I have all along. Others may see it as not affordable. I don't want to argue the point. It's a subjective description of the project.
Mm-hmm.
But when the tender goes out, if it goes out, if we ratify, we'll find out what the tender costs come in at, John.
Right.
And if you're right, and if somebody's trying to skin us, council can decide not to go forward with the project.
That's right.
You know, I'm open to that. I think I've even said that publicly before, that if somebody's going to try and jam us, if we've got X in the bank to support the project and the tender costs come in too high, absolutely. There is an opportunity for us to step back from this. And there was a discussion around this by council. You know, are you necessarily committed once you have tendered a project, when you receive bids, are you bound legally to have to go forward with that? And of course, the answer is not no, generally speaking. I did tendering for 15 years. If you come in with a price point that's significantly higher than what we have in the bank, and there's language built into these contracts that allow you not to necessarily have to accept that bid. Right. So that's a fair point. I'm not going to dispute that with you. If somebody's trying to give us a haircut on that, we can simply say, well, you know what, unless there's something walks in the door and we get a nice hit from the province or the feds, we can decide not to go forward with it.
Fair point. Again, a good answer. 16 minutes after 8 o'clock. Mayor Bill Mauro is our guest. Last night there was a touch of tension surrounding the deputation by the CLE. This was completely out of the blue for me. The CLE presented to you and the council that they have 20 acres of land that is available for you if you'd like to start talking shop and maybe look at the opportunity to build a structure on their land. The advantages to that is that it's on major streets that don't require any other infrastructure to get in and out of. There is infrastructure in the ground to be able to build this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There were a lot of positives to that. You were kind of taken aback by it a little bit in that it was kind of an 11th hour push to suggest a new location. That led to a conversation about how they had mentioned this to you and other councillors in the past, and it's never come to fruition. Can you talk about the CLE option and why we haven't heard about it up until this point?
Yeah, certainly, and that's fair. It's a fair criticism. I almost said Councillor Timko. He reminded me last night he had come into my office in January or March of 2019 as an individual. Right. It's just saying if you go forward with this, we're an option for you. And quite frankly, I'd completely forgotten about it. But having said that, it was not an official CLE Board of Directors position.
Gotcha.
And so you would have expected that if there was some serious interest in this, and this isn't a criticism of the board, they're a group of volunteers doing good work in the community, that it would have come forward. I guess my point, John, is that the city has been doing geotechnical work for quite some time. About 8 months ago or so, when through motion I established the Special Purpose Committee, we've been dealing with component parts of this project. And when we did that, when we agreed to establish the Special Purpose Committee, it basically gave a bit of a green light for the project where we started spending money, allowing things to progress while the Special Purpose Committee did its other work. And some of that work was geotechnical work. We've spent $2 million on this project, or have committed to north of $2 million on this project already. And so the geotechnical work on the site at Chapels has been a work in progress now for a fair bit of time. So that's my point with the CLE project, that was public information and that would have been known. To specifically to your question, though, I suppose, you know, if a councillor wants to do something and bring forward an alternate site, nobody said that last night. Nobody brought a motion forward. Perhaps a councillor will. I don't know. And then we would, I suppose, deal with it at that point. But for you to remember and for the community to be aware of, since the Special Purpose Committee was established months ago, We have been spending money. We've spent north of $2 million, and we've been doing geotechnical work on the very site that it's projected to land at.
All right. Last piece to all of this, and I wrote about it on my blog this morning. That's posted on our website because I've said this before, like a broken record. There are two components last night that showed its ugly head again. That is frustrating as a citizen, and is concerning long term. First being, administration and the CEDC both gave recommendations that not everybody supported. We pay these people a lot of money to come up with these kinds of things and to come up with reports that guide council to their next decision. That was kind of ignored. Part two of that is that this council, with every major decision, seems to be more and more divided based on the age of the councillors, based on the experience of the councillors, and that the tension between councillors and each other and councillors and administration seems to be getting thick. Do you feel that in the room at all, and are you concerned about that for the rest of this term?
Look, if there's not friction between the political side of the table and the administrative side, if everybody is friends and, high-fiving each other all the time, John, this is part of the process.
Right.
I guess I've been doing it long enough where I appreciate and respect the information that's provided to me, and I take it seriously. But if there's not friction in the room, I'm not sure people are doing their jobs, quite honestly. I feel pretty strongly about that. And when council has difficult discussions, then so be it. It's just the nature of the game. I also said, in terms of administration's referral, I'll say it again here publicly, and I'm not looking to pick battles or criticize anybody, but in my opinion, there was nothing new in that supported their recommendation for the referral. We knew about the operating deficit projection, and it's gone down. We were hopeful we were going to receive provincial and federal support. That's been confirmed now. The position is better now than it was then. The idea that there will be operating costs associated with reopening city facilities is not new. Maybe we didn't know exactly what the numbers would be, but we knew there would be costs. There will be revenues as well. So I don't know what the expenses over revenues will be or revenues over expenses. My point is simply that there was nothing new there. And so it was a frustration for me. And I've expressed this, to administration that now, not 3 months ago when it was a $13 million projected operating deficit when this project was moving forward, but now on the night that we're dealing with the recommendation for potentially the final time, that's when the referral hit the floor. That's okay. Administration, I have my own thoughts perhaps on why that came to us in terms of what they see their role as, and I'll respect that. But it certainly doesn't mean that we have to take every recommendation that comes to us from administration. And in fact, there's lots of examples historically where councils don't. That's what we're elected for,
That's
in
true.
fact, right?
Yep.
If you want administration to make all of the decisions, then maybe you don't need to elect anybody. I mean, there is a role for the political side to play here. Sometimes the administrative arm will take what might be seen as the more cautious and safe route, and perhaps the political side needs to take what might be seen as a bit more of a risk.
Bill, as always, I appreciate your time, especially after a marathon meeting last night. I know you guys were up late, and now you have a lot of work to do ahead of you, and I appreciate the time and your take on how things went down last night. I certainly respect your thoughts and opinions on why this should move forward. I still agree that it should. There is some nervousness, but I think you did a great job of explaining why we could be sleeping a little easier with this decision.
Well, thanks, John. It's nice to hear that you think it's a good one to move forward as well. I appreciate hearing that. And thanks for having me again this morning.
Excellent. Thanks so much, sir. Stay safe.
Okay, bye-bye.
Mayor Bill Mauro. That's what it's all about. That's what it's really what we are electing people to do, right? Make decisions, and they made it last night, whether you like it or not. It's going through, and you probably are owning a new turf facility. News is next. Jigsaw Now is on 99.9 The Bay.